It's a return of Fibbo Swanee, one of our most prized guests. In fact, one of our only guests on this channel now, is back, and it's going to be a very, very interesting day to kind of see what your new look on the market is. Now, I want to remind everyone who's been, following up on this series, as we've been having Swanee on now for, it's got to be like 2-3 years, something like that.
Yeah,
It's been a while. The last video that we recorded in October, Swanee was suggesting that his model of the market was looking at perhaps around a $50,000 price target for Bitcoin within the next 6 months. That, I would say, is more or less met. And the series of this analysis that really, I think, started to begin around like June-ish of last year, it's been running up this whole market, and it's been pretty damn accurate. So I'll let Swanee speak for himself. But as always, man, it's a pleasure to have you back on here. I think I speak for the whole community that we're very, very happy and very much looking forward to, what you have in store.
All right. Well, thanks, Krown, for having me on again. Good talking to you. I know our schedules are a little much, and we finally got time to talk here in January. No, everything's been good. I had a minimum of 48K with a possibility of 50, so getting up to where it was, I call that a win. So I'll take that. But now it's like, okay, now that that's happened, where are we going from here? That kind of thing.
As always.
Yeah, no kidding.
The never-ending story of price.
Exactly. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what time frame. If it's 5 minutes, it's like, okay, I got that. Now what do I do for the next one? All right.
Yep, exactly.
But what I wanted to do this morning was to go through BTC and just kind of go through the time frames, get a little story around what's happening in the various time frames, and kind of trying to figure out where this thing's headed. And then maybe in kind of a macro picture where some farther out targets. I know like people like to have those, those macro pictures, but you know how that gets sometimes. It's those are much tougher calls to make. But let's see what we got here. I'm going to start out on the 4 hour. And as you can see, we broke down into the bear zone here. And if you were trading this, you're working your way up, you get into the bear zone, and then that's your signal to either lighten the load or to get out of positions, or even short the market if it's really strong. But at the time the 4 hour was going into the bear zone, the daily was still in the bull zone. So it, depending on how you tackled that, you could have reduced your positions, or just got out altogether and take profit, because it's been a nice run to the upside. So most of the trades that were in this should be in profit, even though it dropped and went into a bear zone. You should be all right. So now what do we do? Right now, we had a nice run this morning. Everybody probably thought, that we were recording this morning because they wanted to get a nice green candle for us to talk about. But the way this is looking, I put a nice trend line in here back from a threshold here. And then it broke at this point and then came back and retested right here. And that trend that actually brings in about 35K as a possibility to the downside on this trend line break. And it's also, there's a fib target that I have based on previous threshold areas and all that. So you get the target of 35.8 to 37.1, somewhere in there. That previous low back here where this started is right around 36.7. But I'm actually, I've talked about my threshold theory before, and a little bit on how there's liminal space. And right now you're kind of in that liminal space to the point where the 4 hour and the daily are on the bearish side. They're in bear zones, but the weekly is still bullish. So you got this corrective area that do we want to be buying now, or do we want to wait for further downside? And right now the 4 hour and the daily are still you kind of have to respect the bear zones at the moment and say that there is that opportunity for a further correction to the downside. And that's the way I'm kind of playing this. I'm going to see how things go right now with the move to the upside. We're at the shallow fib, which is on the bearish side. So the 41.4 area should be resistance. And we're starting to find some of that selling interest right there at the shallow fib here this morning. as it's coming down just a little bit, and it did not break into the bull zone. If it did break into the bull zone, you still need to have 3 4 hour candles above the shallow fib. So I need three consecutive settles above 41.4 to signal a buy with a new bull zone. But right now, we're in the bear zone, it's holding and it's hitting resistance. So you want to respect these downside targets to possibly, have a nice correction all the way. I mean, it could go all the way down to 30K. I don't think that will happen, but you got to be prepared to have that happen just in case it does. And the reason I'm waiting to buy down here in the bear zone. I'm not going to be buying here. I'm not going to be buying here. I'm either going to be waiting for a much larger correction or a new bull zone with the filtered out consecutive settles.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, because right
I'm
now
not a buyer here either.
you what now?
I'm not a buyer here either.
Yeah, it's a tough area, and you got to look at the risk reward and that kind of thing.
Exactly. The
And
probabilities just aren't on your side here. You're
yes,
playing a
exactly.
difficult game.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're looking at the 4 hour here, you got some downside targets you can look for if you're playing the short side or looking for areas to buy. But I'm going to hold and wait for 30.3. I'm out of all my 4 hour positions based on the bear zone. Took all the profit, so I'm just kind of riding it at the moment. So that's the 4 hours. So that's a little bit more on the near term. What's happening in the bearish zone here, and what I like to see is when this actually hits the shallow fib, because this 41.4, this 38.2 comes from my threshold. It's not an absolute high and low. It's within the proportions that I try to measure. And I like to see when selling interest comes in at the areas that it should, based on my whole theory and all that. So that's working pretty well. So going on to the daily, um, we also went into the bear zone here. But there's an interesting thing with the daily, and it's kind of weird, but it's just the way it goes. When this started back here on this bull zone, way back in December of 22, or yeah, I guess it would be January 23, somewhere right around this area in here. As we were working our way up all the way up to this point, it never broke the previous shallow fib every time it went into every one of these bear zones. So it keeps moving up as a really key critical support level. So we're trading right now at 41.1, but 36.9 is this critical support that's based on my process here, which is that previous shallow fib level. That's my critical support there. And so if this daily comes down to that level, that could be a spot that I might consider buying, depending on how the internals look and how momentum's looking and all that. But that's going to be the first spot that I'm going to consider on the daily. But if we get three consecutive settles underneath this 36.9 here, it's going to open up a move back down to 30K where my buy target would be. This one comes out to be 29,433 based on the fibs. So when you look at the 4 hour, the 4 hours at 30.3. So you're right around that 30K level as a possibility of getting to.
Interestingly enough, before you go on, that's
Yeah.
actually around one of my worst case scenarios right now. For long term bull is somewhere just below $30,000, like whether that be 28 to 29. It's just interesting to see the confluence there.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
go ahead. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
mean
that's
to
cool.
cut you
No,
off.
that's cool. Because another thing to think about is even if it gets all the way down to 30K, I believe, and I'll have to look, my weekly is in the bull zone, and I think it could get all the way down to
Yeah,
30K and still maintain that bullish structure.
right, right.
So,
I mean, the
so
weekly's still in an uptrend there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still a 30% drop from where we are now. So
Yes.
so if you are long and we're in the bear zone for the 4 hour and the daily, you have to take that risk because you have to respect these bear zones, because when they hit, it's a nice signal. It makes it kind
Mhm.
of take the emotion out. That's what we do this for, right? But there's something I wanted to show on here, and I can't remember where it was, and I don't remember. But if it pops back up, I'll bring it back up. But right now, that's the main thing: 36.9 on the daily. We're trying to work our way back up, but again, we can't. We're not going to be buying the daily again until it gets back up into a bull zone with three consecutive settles. But the shallow fib right now is at 40.2. we're already trading above it. But if this thing starts to rally and get back above into the bull zone, we're already going to be well above the shallow fib.
Right.
So it would be an automatic buy. So those are the two things I'm waiting for. So right now it's kind of a test of patience because it's going to be we're going to be waiting for a bull zone, which could take a while, or we're going to be waiting for 30K, which also could take a while. So we
Yeah.
could be in this area of limbo of what to do. And of course you could trade the 4 hour if you want to hit these fib targets. Like if you traded this, you could have bought at the 100% when it came down here. You would have went underwater a little bit, but you already would have sold it at the shallow fib. So you would have been buying at the target, selling at the shallow fib. So if it gets down to the fib extension target, you could buy it there, but wherever the shallow fib would be, if this actually went down to the fib extension, then the shallow fib would be at 40.2. So you'd actually buy it here, sell
Mm.
it there with still more downside. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
trades you can do while you're waiting for things to happen. But right now the 4 hour and the daily are on the downside, so you got to take that into consideration. So with that, so from that, you're going on to the weekly, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Is the weekly right now, the shallow fibs at 38.1, and it's kind of been tested, found some
Yeah.
buying interest. So this is kind of that hopium that the
Mm.
support that we've already hit could already be the low, and we could start to go back into another move to the upside. But it's got to make the 4 hour into the bull zone, and it's got to push. You got to get some of that buying interest momentum to kind of push that up. But
Right.
this is the first time that we're seeing a little bit of a possibility that the low's in off of this correction that we've seen so far. But if it does end up breaking this 38.2, the 61.8% level is 31.3 on the weekly, and it touches in this intersection of the trend line. Gives it could actually work all the way down into February or March of 24, right before the halving, because usually you get a lot of lows, or not lows, but
Yep.
it's kind of negative prior to the halving, and then April could be the bounce from there and start heading back higher.
Yeah.
So
So out of the
yeah.
last three, I don't mean to cut you off again, but out of the
Oh
last
no,
three
cut me
halvings,
off anytime.
two of them did put in the low like just before the halving, and one of them
Yep.
happened about a couple weeks after the halving.
Yeah.
Just
When I
just for
show some of the
reference.
macro looks, we'll
Yeah.
we'll see that for sure. But what I'm saying mostly is this little area right in this is your risk right here,
Yeah.
if it ends up happening. But that's why I'm saying it's liminal space, because it could be the bottom right here, finding some buying interest, and then we're going to head higher back up to some of these other higher targets. The next target would be 58.3 on the weekly here.
So I actually have something similar to you as this, like in the most hopium scenario.
Yep.
I'm curious though, if this were to be the actual low, what would be the confirming factor for you? For me, I'd need to see closures on these higher timeframes above about 46. For you, is it around the same area, or what are you essentially looking for? If that quite literally was the low, and it's up only.
Yeah. What I would be looking for is this
Yeah.
Well, let me get rid of this thing here. What I'm looking for is the low here,
Yeah.
holding and not getting below it, and the daily hits a bull zone. So in other words,
Okay. Okay.
if
So
if
once
if,
the
if we
daily
hold that
turns
low
full,
and that daily makes a new bull zone,
yeah.
that's going to be the flip
Okay.
for me. Most
And
likely, it's probably for us to get into a bull zone. I think I looked at it yesterday. I think we have to get up to. I think to get into a bull zone and get. I think it was like 44, 45, somewhere right around there.
if
To
you
where,
actually have the RSI level that would be needed for the bull zone, I can backwards engineer that.
yeah, I looked. I don't have it here with me, but I could get it. I just don't have it.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Yeah,
All
yeah. I
good.
just
All good.
I just didn't have it for queued up for this morning,
Okay.
but it would take me too long to get to the chart that actually has this
No,
stuff.
no worries. No worries.
So I'll tweet it out of the actual level, but um uh that's what I'd be looking for. So it's not really a level for me. It's more
Okay.
if we hold that low and we don't make a new
Yeah.
low on the weekly, or where that low is, and the daily makes a new bull
Okay.
zone.
So
That
so
would
the
be
next confirming factor would be
yeah,
daily, then goes into the bull zone.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
okay, game on.
Yeah. So I'm not really following the price. I'm following
Yeah,
the
I see.
breakage of the zones. Uh, So that could be nice if it holds here. It'd be great, and then work our way up. So that's what I'm looking at on the weekly here. Is we had this nice the proportions are working great. You got the trend line break here, and then you got
Mhm.
the target, hit the target right here, found the selling interest, which was also at the 100%. I think it's also at a 61.8% level on the daily. I think
Yeah.
there was definitely a selling area right around that 48, 49 area. And that was why that was that minimum of 48K for me, with a possibility if it just ran right through it like a freight train, then we'd start seeing 50, 55, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it held like it should. I mean, that's where selling interest or profit taking or something should be happening. And it didn't fail. That's what happened. So now we're looking for those areas to buy on the downside. And right now we just got to take that risk, or keep that risk in the back of your mind that even though the weekly's in the bull zone, um, those 4 hour and dailies are nasty at
Just
the moment.
also before you go on, I'm curious. So, just hypothetical situation here, and to be clear, I think that this is unlikely. But what would it mean to you, or what would it mean to your model if you were to see price action come back down and kind of violate what I believe is your 61.8 level there on the weekly, like $31,000 on 3 consecutive closures? Would that be a confirmation of a new regime, basically?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a flip of a primary trend for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would like if let me see where in the hell they put the arrows anymore. Here we go. Right now, if it ended up doing that and you took this distance,
Yeah.
and it came down here and broke this,
Yeah.
you would be looking at, a move down. You know, full retracement is that the minimum. You
Yeah.
break the
Yeah.
61.8%. That's the
So
minimum.
that's reversal territory for you on the macro scale, basically.
Yeah, yeah, three
Okay.
weekly settlements
Yeah.
underneath that level
Yeah.
would bring in your 18 to 20K again.
Yeah. It makes
Um,
sense.
I don't think that's going to happen based on the
Right.
patterns, but you just never know. Markets are
Yeah.
markets.
You have to have
Um,
some way of figuring it out. Yeah. Of
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, that would be a major flip for me, right there. Um, so let's go on to a couple others here. Um, this is the 8 day. I like the 8 day when it comes to a little bit more macro look. I got a bunch of different 8 days that I look at. But what I have on here, and I'm kind of highlighting on the halving times because that's coming up here in April. Um,
I just have to ask, is the 8 day based off of the Fibonacci number 8?
yeah, yeah. I try to
That
look at
makes sense.
yeah.
I've
I
never
try to look
considered
at
that before.
yeah. I look at 8 day. I got a 13
Right.
day, which is almost like a two
Yeah.
week. That kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Sometimes you
That
get
makes a
little
lot of sense.
you find patterns in there that if
Yeah.
you're doing some analysis, it's kind of interesting on how there's
That
conflicting
actually helps me
failures.
kind of piece together something as well because I find a lot of value in the 5 day time frame, also a fib,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
more so
Exactly.
than the weekly, actually.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Um, but what I'm looking at here is there's a whole bunch on here, but if you go from when the high to the next high, it was 186 bars the first time. Then you went from a high to a high that was 180 bars. So if you just take 180 bars, you're looking at uh, basically September, October area of 25 as your next high. But then if you look at the lows, you had 179 bars from
Yeah.
low to low, and then you had another 179 to low, and then another 175 brings you into August 26. So I'm
Mm.
kind of looking at this as a macro look. But then I looked at what I'm doing is I'm taking the trend lines from the halving, right here, and then it breaks down, and then if you look at this red 61.8% level, it kind of broke down the trend line, and then it went down, came back up, and then was underneath it for a while, and then broke back up, and then we went back into the next cycle. Um, and then if you take the trend line from here, it's the same kind of thing. You got the 61.8% level that kind of broke down, came
Yeah.
back up. It did kind of break down here a little bit, but then again, you got this one right here at 31.3, the 61.8% level that kind of broke out, and then we're back above it. And
Yeah.
that's interesting that that's that level, that 30K, 31K that it could drop to. So that's why that risk that you have, looking at this area right in here, that risk that we see like on the weekly here, if it breaks down to 31.3, you're looking at the possibility of getting back down to this area here, as the risk. But here's the thing that I think is kind of interesting, and this is kind of weird, but if you look at the 61.8% level here, and then you look at where the halving started, it's roughly the same price. And then if you got the 61.8% level here, you started the halving roughly at the same price.
Yeah.
So if you go to this,
Oh, that is fucking weird.
yeah. So what I'm thinking is that from now until April, there is that risk of us dropping
Yeah.
to that 30K. So I want to keep that open as in the back of my mind. Like I don't want to go too long and get
Yeah.
too much exposure in this time period because you do have that risk to the downside as we
Yeah.
get into the halving, and then after that it should find support, work its way up. Now if it holds with the support that we're at today and then it starts heading higher, it is what it is because we don't have the, 200 years of data here. We only have,
Right.
so
Yeah.
much to look at, and it's happened a couple of times. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen again for sure. But I like the pattern that I'm seeing from having to having to having. And we're kind of in that same kind of zone because this one kind of popped up and came back down. This one went down, came back up, but it was at the same price. But this one could definitely come down to that level. So that was the main thing I was looking at, was where the price could be during the halving. And right now that 30K could be a possibility, and that's what I'm trying to measure out here on this one. So if you look at that, and then we flip onto this, just looking at a modified shift here. Um, I'm just looking at some support and resistance levels in here, and then this yellow is that trend line we've been looking at.
Mhm.
We broke the trend line, came back up, and then went all the way up to the target, and that's what we kind of saw on the weekly. But right here is these levels right in here. There was not three consecutive settles right here, and there was not three consecutive settles here. It was very close, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
And
I
then it
remember
dropped
that.
back down and hit support on the trend line, and then also on this uh, pitchfork thing. And then you work your way up, and then it broke to the upside here, broke all the way up to the midpoint, or whatever this line, whatever they call this, the midpoint here, went up a little bit, hit our target, and then has came back down. This is just the fibs here, just showing that 38.7 is where that
Yeah.
weekly was, holding. But if you break down this area right in here, this intersection, let me get this out of here. This intersection right here is right around 35, but the 61.8% level, it could drop even further. But we'll have to see, because right now this is April. This is the April time frame. Vertically is right at this intersection, which is at 35. But of course, things could wick down, those kind of things. So let's kind of keep an eye on that. So I'm just looking at this as just another thing to look at for support and resistance. But I had this here. If you take this leg, I was just looking at just like the legs here and the just the slope of trend. So from
Mhm.
this low to high, and then from this low to high, kind of matches. So if this actually comes down to this area right in here and hits this as a low, you're looking at September, October of 24 as your high around 66 or so. So when you're looking at some of these timings, I don't know if I have yeah, I might have it on the other chart. It's a timing of where some of the highs, where we break the highs, might be in this next chart. Let me see here. Yeah, here we go. So on this chart here, I was looking at the break of this trend line, and then how long actually the break and then the retest, and then once we retested that line and had the bull run, it was 78 bars from that point to making a new high above the previous high here, and then there was 78 bars on this one to make the new high. And if you take 78 bars here, you're looking at that September October time frame of 69K, and that's what this is kind of looking at here. If we get all the way down to that point, then you're looking at um, that move up to 69K. But the thing is, if we hold here, then you're looking at 70. Then you're seeing probably a break of that 69 a little bit earlier. But it all depends, if we start from here and make that next trend to the upside, or we start from a little bit lower as it gets into, because this intersection right here is right at the halving. So that one makes more sense to me if it gets down there, and then you work your
Yeah.
way up to this point, and then you're kind of matching up with that previous high, and then you break from there. So just looking at it to just following patterns and seeing how all that works. Going on to this one, that was the main thing I was kind of looking at here. I've shown this one before, and this is just another 8-day that I was just looking at different patterns based on different breaks and different timings and all that. Low to low to low, high to high to high, all that kind of thing. So once we get above the 69K, just like it made a new high here and then had this little area of a run to a new high. So if you go from high to high to high, you're looking at October or uh, I think like October, November for a high. So I'm looking at 69K break here, and then you got to move to the upside. I mean, I was looking at I just took this little curve here to see where it could go, and you're looking at about 114 um, to 124, somewhere in that range that we could get to. But you're talking, you know, this time next year or November of 25,
Right.
going out for like another whole year. But there, I mean, if it follows the pattern, gets down to where we are and work our way up, that's that macro look that I'm looking at. So in other words, if we get down onto that weekly, um, if it ends up breaking and gets down to this point right here and it holds this bull zone, that's where you back the truck up, start buying some, and holding it for that long term macro look. Um, and then just showing some. I like psychology and looking at things, so I kind of put this sine wave in here, looking at get into this increasing mood, then you get into this peak positive mood, and then it
Oh,
breaks.
that is so fucking cool.
Yeah,
Oh my
so,
god.
so yeah, and the trend lines look nice too. They break, you hit a target. This one actually went up, but it came back down to test right here. Then it
Yeah.
broke, and then it went down to the target, and then we broke this blue one, and the blue one is the one that hit the target already right here and working its way down. But we also broke this red one that gives us the 83 to 91. So if it gets down to this point, it could either start from here and work our way up, or it could start from here and work our way up. As long as this trend line holds, we're still in that increasing mood and in our way to a peak positive mood so far. So you got that hope that we're talking about in here because we're in that area of limbo,
Yeah.
or I call liminal space. But that there is hope that there is some support being held here that could push us and increase that mood and get us into that peak positive mood, and then maybe we start to kind of top out. I mean, if you look at the swings here, we did hit a high, but then it went to another high in this area. I
Yeah.
mean, people were probably freaking out right here, but
Oh, they
it,
were. I
held.
remember
Yeah.
that. I know you do too.
But what I like is that we're on this red trend line break on
Yeah.
our way to a possible peak positive mood before we
Yeah.
start to turn it back around. So bullish long term, you know, just being protective here in the near term is where I'm at on that. And then lastly, on the BTC, just on the monthly, just some of the areas I'm looking at. Um, right now, the monthly candle does look rather ominous if it ends
Yeah.
up closing like this, which would lead to me thinking that weekly could get down to that 31 or down to that further support down lower. In this case, we're looking at 35.9 on the downside this way, and then 28 if that ends up breaking. So we talked about that on the weekly, right? If it broke that trend line, then I'd be nervous of getting back down into the 20s and those kind of things. But right now, I don't think that's the case. But if this ends up on this month closing like this, I can see us moving down to hit some of these lower targets. What I would like to see, and we have a few days left. I would love to see it close back above the close of this one, which was
Mhm.
42,288. If we can get up to 42,288 and close this month above this price range, then I'd probably be a little bit more confident than that the support that we're seeing right now should hold. If it doesn't, then that risk on that weekly that we looked at back here down to 31.3 could be a possibility. So that's another thing I'm kind of watching is how this monthly kind of closes. I know I'm jumping back chart to chart and time frame, so hopefully everything's making
No,
sense. But
everything's flowing. You're good.
all
You're
right,
good.
cool. Because I know it's hard when you're going back and forth trying to show a
Yep.
story. But that's where I'm at on BTC. Really, the only thing on the monthly I'm looking at is um, is that close. And April of 24 is a low based on our low to low to low. So when you're looking at this, I can probably blow it up a little bit. I'm sure you can see it, but if you go from low to low to low, you're looking at April of 24 as a low. It doesn't mean that it's going to make a lower low. It just means that you're
A
going to see a
low.
low off of this move to the upside. You might see a low working our way down, and maybe it comes all the way down into some of this area as we go. But what I'm showing is that the timing is that the halving is a possibility of a low coming in play. And right now, I think the lowest it could go is around 30K. But maybe it only goes to 33, maybe 32, somewhere around there. But that's what the 4 hours are for, and a little bit more nearer time frames to narrow in on those actual prices. This is just more of a directional macro look of where things could head. But that's just interesting on how it all kind of times out. But again, it's all based on history patterns. Can patterns break? Yes. But if this pattern holds true and does exactly what it's been doing, in history, then you just have to take that into consideration. And that's the way I'm kind of attacking this at this point in time. So positions are, I don't have any. Out of my 4 hours, I did keep 10% of my daily position long, just to have some exposure in case this thing just goes freaking ballistic for some stupid ass reason, like who knows what. But if
That's
if
what
it does,
Bitcoin does sometimes.
yeah, exactly. And the reason I'm doing that, I'm holding 10%, is that we still aren't below the critical support on the daily, so I'm leaving some exposure until that happens. I will probably buy a little bit more if it gets down to 36.9, and then stop it out, rather quickly if it ends up breaking the critical support.
Yeah.
But that would be the only reason I would add position at this point. But mainly, I'm going to be holding for bull zone. So that's what I got for BTC on a little story of all the different time frames. So you got anything to add there, Krown, or any
That's awesome
questions?
to see, man. Just because your system, like your system and my system seem to align a lot, but you're always ahead of me, is what it seems like. Like you figure it out a little bit beforehand. I'm still seeing more a higher probability of overall downside, but I'm also in the same sort of boat with you that, hey, max hopium here. Could Bitcoin have actually already put in the low? Yes, it's possible. Certainly, it's always a possibility, right?
Yep.
But what I would need to see from here, kind of similar to you, is I would need to see kind of a relatively quick reclaim of somewhere around $46,000. I think you're a little bit lower than that, to be fair, but somewhere
Yep.
around there, especially around end of month, would look amazing. But as it stands right now, probability still lower. If Bitcoin were to say hang around this $40,000 region without really breaking down for all of February, that would also be a big signal to me.
Yep.
Because if we are going to see continuation, my model's saying middle to end of February is where you're going to see that most likely to the downside.
Yep.
So if we didn't see it by then yeah, upside just, it's like a war of attrition, basically. It's like, all right, we didn't go down, so we go up,
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I mean, given that you said that, when you look here on the weekly,
yeah,
if you look at the range between 38.1 and 49 here, like you
yeah,
said, we could be in this and stay above the shallow fib on the weekly
yeah, that
and
would
just
look really
average
good.
40K for
Yeah,
for a long time.
for like a month or two would look
Yeah,
really fucking good, actually.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be great. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I'd
yeah,
actually like to see, and that's what we were kind of talking about, was what's that break for you,
yeah,
and that a breakdown of here uh, is where the break is. But I would love to see us stay above this shallow fib of 31 or 38.1, or an average at 40K. I'm with you. I think that's probably the best scenario
yeah, yeah,
for this to kind of accumulate at 40K,
yep.
and then start to take off from there. But we'll
And to
see.
be fair, I think that would probably be one of the most unforeseen scenarios that people are kind of discussing as of right now.
Yeah.
Most people are either big down or big up from here.
Yeah, yeah. But Crown, people don't like it when it just kind of
Of
hovers,
course,
because it's
there is
boring, right?
capitulation by boredom. There really is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, I
So
said, it's a test of patience.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
a trader, patience is probably one of the main things you need to learn, because
Unfortunately.
yeah, no, yeah, unfortunately, yes. But yeah, I'm with you. I would love to see that scenario, um, but you got to lay the risk out. But I like
Yeah,
what
of
you're saying.
course, of course.
Yep,
Yeah, my base case is that we see somewhere low 30, upper 20s, and it's probably going to be a bit of a quick move, and work its way back into the middle 30s relatively fast is kind of what I'd be looking for.
yep.
But just as you say, like these things far out, it's always very, very difficult.
Oh
But you
yeah,
have your
absolutely.
major levels, you have all the criteria that you're looking for, and that's all that you can do as a trader. And so far your model has been fucking consistent, man. Not only did you call the low in advance, and you fucking called it before me in November of 2022, but you also got this whole damn move to the upside as well. So, in my experience, if it ain't broke, don't fucking fix it. And it's going to be very interesting to see, how this evolves over the next couple months. As always, you're more than welcome to join in and do a collab here on this channel whenever you want. But this has been really interesting to me yet again, probably one of your most interesting, just because this is, as you said, one of them. It's a delicate situation. This is like hard. This is like the hard part right here. The
Yes.
last year, kind of on the easier side, but this is where real trading does happen, and it's a lot more difficult. So it's very interesting to see how you navigate these scenarios.
Yep. Yep. And I'm with you. If it gets down to the 30K or whatever, like I'll have an order sitting in
Yeah,
there at 30, down in this area, because you said if it does get down there, it could wick down there,
yeah. I
and
think it'd be
and
a quick one.
yeah, that would be what I would think too, and uh, probably miss it. It'd probably get down to like
Yeah,
31K and
yeah,
and start taking off. But I'd like to have some limit orders in there,
yeah.
because if it's based on my plan, I want to have those limits in there in case it does, wick down. Because a lot of times in the past, I've gotten really good fills by doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Taking the emotion out. Because right now I'm taking emotion out. I'm following my plan, and I'm just going to put orders in based on what my plan says to do. So I don't sit there and go, and then I start getting all worked up, and like all you start reading shit and you're like, oh my
Of
gosh,
course.
you're like screw that, man.
You're
I'm like,
goddamn right.
so that's why I'd rather just put the orders in of what my
Yeah,
system says and just kind of let it ride. Does it get
exactly.
boring sometimes? Yes, but
Mhm.
that's what the patience is,
Yeah,
and that's why if you wait and follow plan and it works the way it should, the profits will come. You just gotta be patient.
exactly. It's a
Yep.
game of probabilities at the end of the day.
Yep.
Man, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you as always, my
Yeah.
man.
No, it's awesome.
Um,
Good seeing you again.
like I said, whenever you want to come back on, you just let me know. Everyone here loves you, and I love speaking with you, so it always works out, man. And of course, I will have all of Swanee's links in the description below if you're not already aware. He's very active, probably mostly on Twitter, I think, but you're actually quite prolific on TradingView as well.
Yeah. Trading view.
And
Yep.
Swanee also has his own website where he'll actually show you his system. So his system's based, as you saw, mostly off of fibs, RSI, and a little bit of the DMI, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall,
It's a little more of it's an educational community basically.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a signal shop.
Of course, of
I'll do
course.
show you. I do show you kind of where I'm at on a few things, but a lot of times it's chart requests. People say,
Yeah,
"Oh, can I have the zones for this?" Or for the zones for that.
right.
A lot of times I'll do that, but I try
And
to
that's
show. I'm trying to teach people how to create the bear and bull zones.
yeah,
It's a bitch to teach because
of course.
it's so many scenarios. It's like Elliott Wave. It's like,
Yeah,
it takes a long time to kind of master the rules and the guidelines and all that. And there's a lot of rules and guidelines to how the zones are formed. So it's kind of like, how do you teach experience and the subjectivity that comes into knowing which fibs matter, which trend lines matter, those kind of things.
yeah,
It's a tough thing, but the community is more of a learn as you go if you want to learn, or you can come on, you can be in that group and just say, hey, give me a chart on whatever, and then run with it and go with
yeah.
it. So it's twofold, but it's mainly a learn as you go community. But I mean, there's a lot of people in there. It's fun, for people that are interested in Fibonacci, because I do a lot of fib stuff in all different forms and fashion. who knows what. But
Absolutely. And I know a few people personally who are in your group, and they only have very, very nice thing to say about it. So
awesome. I'd love to hear that. Thanks.
indeed, my man. Indeed. But like I said, as always, man, it's a pleasure to have you on here. We'll get you back soon enough. Yeah, man, thanks for joining.
All right. Thank you.